This tweet right here from the Governor Newsom press office that pretty much went viral and started getting massively reshared all over X reminded me that I've been meaning to make this video for a couple of weeks now. If this tweet bothers you the way it bothers me, then it's time that you educate yourself on what the terminology for actions like this actually is. And that, of course, is stochastic terrorism. Yes, this page, Governor Newsom's press office, is an official press office page associated with the California governor, Gavin Newsom. He's actually created it in some way to be a bit of a mockery of MAGA and of President Donald Trump. It was actually a little funny at first, I won't lie. He used terms like trash can Tommy Lauren, who I'm not a fan of, so I laughed at it. And it was funny watching a page like this type in all caps and try to mimic how Trump talks, but it's just gotten so beyond the point of funny now. And when it's being used for gross tweets like this, Stephen Miller, that's of course the deputy chief of staff for the Trump administration, Stephen Miller is a fascist, the page says. And you can see, thankfully, a lot of Republicans coming on the offensive here and attacking them for this. But actually, that's a great quote right there from Ronald Reagan. If fascism ever comes to America, it will come in the name of liberalism, Ronald Reagan. Right. So if this bothers you the way that it bothers me, because we know what's going on here, we all do. Nobody should be fooling themselves at this point. Charlie Kirk was assassinated, and language like this is part of the reason why. And essentially, I look at it as this is literally them now pointing the finger, knowing that their party is full of unstable people, and saying, this is the next enemy. Go get them. That's how I feel about it anyway. So let's go over this. Stochastic terrorism refers to the use of mass communication by a public figure to demonize or incite a group or individual, leading to random, statistically probable acts of violence by individuals acting independently. While the violence itself is unpredictable, the public figure remains legally insulated from accountability due to ambiguous language that avoids direct incitement. The term highlights the statistically predictable but individually random nature of violence stemming from orchestrated rhetoric. So do you see what I'm getting at here by highlighting this? Stochastic terrorism. This is why I'm making this video, because yes, being called a fascist bothers me to my core. Not me personally. I actually revel in being called such names, but I also feel I am a man who can take care of himself and doesn't have as much to lose as somebody like Stephen Miller, or especially like Charlie Kirk did, who built an entire company that was successful and that he was using to provide for his family and change America. So let's go over the key characteristics. Demonization. Speakers with a large audience engage in rhetoric that demonizes and dehumanizes a target individual or group. Incitement. The rhetoric functions as an implicit but potent solicitation of violence or harmful acts. Statistical probability. The violence is not a certainty, but statistically probable with the potential for individuals to act on the incitement. Unpredictable individual violence. The specific individuals who commit the violent acts are not known or coordinated in advance. Legal insulation. The speakers remain legally protected because their language is ambiguous and does not meet the legal standards for direct incitement. And so once again, I bring you back to this tweet. Do you think now, after hearing all of the key points of what stochastic terrorism is, that a tweet like this from the Governor Newsom press office citing Stephen Miller as a fascist is an example of stochastic terrorism? Because I certainly do. I think it checks off every single box of those key points that I just mentioned listed. Every single one. To offer up some proof even. Here are some people retweeting this. Stephen Miller is a fascist. I don't know who this guy is, but what does it say when I click on when I hover over his name? A classic liberal of Clintonian Democratic rank, anti-MAGA. I'm on the side of resistance. And here he is echoing the harmful rhetoric that basically got Charlie Kirk killed. Stephen Miller is a fascist. So it works. What Governor Newsom is doing and what the Democrats are doing is working. This is not the only example. Here's another one. The phantom callback. Let's click on his profile first. And may every day be another wonderful secret. So that is a quote from a supposed letter from President Donald Trump to Epstein on his birthday. Of course, there's no proof of that, but you can see here he's no Trump fan by having that quote in his bio, right? Fascism, he says. I'm not joking, by the way. That's what this all is. Stephen Miller is quite literally a psychopathic fascist, and he's clearly the one calling the shots while Trump golfs and posts. So you have a delusional guy now who's citing conspiracy theories about how Stephen Miller, the deputy chief of staff, not even the chief of staff, not the vice president, not the secretary of war, not the secretary of state, Stephen Miller, the deputy chief of staff, he says, is clearly the one calling the shots while Trump golfs and posts. And he's freely using the term fascism and calling Stephen Miller a fascist. Now, here's a post highlighting even more posts about Stephen Miller being a fascist. You can see on the top left there, they're comparing him to Mussolini. You can see top right in comparison to the top left. You've got the insignia, the World War II insignia up there. They're comparing Stephen Miller to that. These are all just a compilation of posts. And so I've thought long and hard about this. And I normally hate complaining about something that I have no solution to, because at the end of the day, America has a right to free speech and free expression. And our right to free speech, most importantly, is there to guarantee us our rights to speak out against government, to speak out against threats to our own country, our own well-being. And so, by all technicalities, you would never want to impose restrictions on free speech when it comes to this. You would certainly actually want the ability to speak freely about somebody who could be an actual fascist or an actual communist for that matter. But on the flip side, you have this happening where a man who is clearly not a fascist, and by the way, I can easily back up how these instances of them calling conservatives like Trump or Stephen Miller a fascist are provably untrue. Because fascists don't actually tolerate being called fascists. Fascists kill their enemies or imprison them for life or make them completely disappear in any other way, shape, or form. If the people that these Democrats are calling a fascists were even 10% fascists, they wouldn't be calling them fascists anymore. They wouldn't have that right. It's so obvious to anybody who's not emotionally driven or emotionally led that the Trump administration is not fascism. Trump himself is not a fascist. If he was, Biden would not have won the presidency in 2020. Trump would never have given up the presidency to Biden. Like, it's just not how it is. All of his political enemies would be gone. We wouldn't hear anything out of them. Any of them that were left around would be too afraid to speak up like this. And so they know this. They know that he's not, but they also know what calling him a fascist does. It puts a target on him. And that is the definition of stochastic terrorism. Let me know what you think about this, though, and what can be done about this, because I've tried thinking about this, and I just don't know anymore. You cannot restrict free speech. I am a free speech absolutionist here on this channel. I believe that that is the best for America's health and well-being, to allow complete and utter free speech. But on the flip side, we cannot allow this to continue happening, especially because the liberals are banking on the fact that they have a bunch of people on antidepressants and all kinds of other medication with severe mental health issues who will continually be exposed to this rhetoric to the point of where they believe it and act on it. Just like we saw with Kirk, just like we saw with Trump. 2 assassination attempts on Trump last year. When will the violence end? It will end when America is unified. How does America get unified is the actual burning question right now. Are the liberals even worth unifying with at this point? What do they stand for that makes us want to unify with them? That answer would be nothing, to be honest with you. But then furthermore, how can you unify with someone who is content to place a target on your back like this and do it probably with a smug smile? It's important to note, Gavin Newsom doesn't run this page exclusively. He has a team that does. But members of that team are posting stuff like this with a smug smile. And Gavin Newsom sees these posts and smugly smiles about it. Stochastic terrorism, that's all I've got to say. Is Gavin Newsom a stochastic terrorist? Is this stochastic terrorism? I think it fits the bill. Tell me what you think down below. Subscribe to American Advocates again for more content like this. And we'll move on to the next story now.